Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Goverlan webcast for Global Configuration Management and Reporting via Scope Actions. My name is Raul, and today we're going to be going over the Scope Action part of the Goverlan Management Suite. We're going to be talking about topics such as inventory reporting, Active Directory reporting, software management and installations, and a lot more. The Goverlan Scope Action part is it's a very comprehensive part of our suite. There's a lot of features, a lot of things you can do in there, and a lot of the times it comes up to creativity. If that means anything, you can really put together some very complex actions and do some complex run book style automation actions here with the Scope Action piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over a few examples of some of these actions, and then I'm going to go over the specific pieces of a Scope Action that make them very, very powerful. So again, this demonstration is designed for anyone who is familiar with Goverlan and wants to know a little bit more, or if you're new to Goverlan and you want to see what Goverlan can do for you. A lot of the features or everything I'm going over here is in Goverlan version 8. So if you are still on version 7, this is a way for you to get familiar with some of the Scope Action, some of the new features to Scope Action, such as short data. And if you haven't tried Goverlan yet, make sure you go to our website and take a look at www.goverlan.com and get your free 30-day copy there, so you can go back and do some of the things that we're doing here. This video presentation is recorded and will be on our YouTube site later on today. So for anyone who's missed it, you can go back and review there. Or if you have any other questions, you can go back and review. The presentation is going to be about 45 minutes, and then we're going to try to do a 15-minute Q&A session. Now, the way we do the Q&A session is I'd like everyone during the course of the presentation to post their questions into the chat box. And at the 15-minute session, what I'm going to do is read off the questions and answer them for anyone who's asking there. And that's basically how we do the Q&A part. So to get started, we're going to go over one or two slides. This is just for the new additions to the Goverlan family, anybody who is just starting to use Goverlan or would like to know a little bit about how it works in the background. So the first thing we're going to talk about is where the Scope Action part fits in the Goverlan family. So Scope Actions are part of the, get my little annotation thing here, are part of the global configuration section. So what you see here, it falls under, the administration diagnostic and remote control, meaning it's the administration diagnostic is for doing your Active Directory management and putting out your day-to-day fires. Remote control is getting direct access to your machines, and the Scope Action part is the enterprise-wide reporting, detecting, and controlling of your machines on a large scale. I'll show you how short data plays into the Scope Action features as far as being able to generate reports based on machines that are no longer alive on your network, or they might be offline for whatever reason. The next slide here, we're going to talk a little bit about short data. What exactly is short data and why do you need it? Short data is a database technology that we're now integrating into the Goverlan Management Suite. It allows us to collect information for machines that are online, and while they're online, we're getting the data, putting it into the database, so that when the machines are offline, you can actually retrieve information from them. This is in comparison to some of the larger systems like SCCM that only rely on a database for their source of information. In the larger systems, the machines pull into the database, they store their information there, and whenever you need to look at your reports or your configurations, you have to take a look at the database. Goverlan is a real-time management system. So what we do first is we try to capture the information from the machine when it's live. So when a machine is online, we retrieve the information directly from it so that you can get the most up-to-date information. You're not looking at a stale copy of a series of machines as they exist in the database. You're getting a real-time snapshot of what's going on. At that same time, we store a copy of that information into the database so that when we run a report and a machine is offline, all we'll do is pull from the database from the offline machine. So we'll pull real-time data from all the live machines, and then from the offline machine, we'll pull a copy from the database. So that, in a nutshell, is shore data. I'm going to be going over some of those reports later on so you can identify when you're actually using shore data technology. Here's a slide based a little bit on how Goverlan works. The first thing we like to talk about is the cost-effective licensing. Goverlan is licensed per operator, not per node, so you can have as many machines that you need to manage on your network. We don't charge you that way. We just charge you for each technician that is using the software. The licenses are perpetual, so that means that you own the copy that you have. There's no monthly fee for accessing anything that has to do with Goverlan. We do have an optional maintenance contract that you can purchase for a yearly fee for maintenance and upgrades. So let's talk a little bit about the deployment as far as the agents go. So when Goverlan is installed on your machine, you have the option to install the agents manually on all your machines if you wish. But for the most part, Goverlan handles the agent installation on its own. As you go through using Scope Actions or any other part of the suite, Goverlan will prompt you and ask you, do you want to install the agent on the machine? You say yes or no. If you say yes, it'll get installed and then proceed with the action. You can go ahead and remove the agents also in the same fashion. You can right-click any machine and select uninstall the agent, or you can do a scope action to manage the agents, which I'll be showing today. The agents are pretty small, less than 5 megs. They are passive agents. They don't do anything unless they're acted upon. So if you push a command, it does the command for you. But they don't pull in. They don't take resources, not too much resources on a machine. If you'll notice at any one point, the Goverlan agent's probably sitting on less than 10 megabytes of RAM while it's not doing anything. There is a central configuration part to managing your agents. We give you the ability to push policies to your agents if you want to control their behaviors. The policies can either come in the free Goverlan Central Server component or a GPO that we give you as part of your installation. The GPO admin template can then be used to push these policies. Easy firewall configuration, so the Goverlan agent only communicates on a single TCP port, and that TCP port is configurable, so you can change it if you wish. All communication between the agents and the console is secure. Everything is authenticated based on your Active Directory credentials or any credentials that you supply to work on your behalf. So Goverlan natively uses the Active Directory privileges that you already have to perform the actions. So if you're not a domain admin or you're not an administrator, a local administrator on a target machine, if you go to perform an action, Goverlan is going to give you an access denied message and tell you to supply the credentials. All information is encrypted. It's encrypted either using the RCA RC4 encryption standard or AES 256, which is our latest encryption package for version 8. And as far as auditing goes, this really goes for the remote control piece. The auditing part is for auditing login events to machines as well as remote control parts. This is not really going to play a big role here in Scope Actions because we're doing reports and configuration management that's audited based on the normal Windows practices that you have in place. And that's it for the slides. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into our demonstration. And let's start with the fun stuff. So Scope Actions is part of the Goverlan Management Console. So I'm going to fire up the console here, and you'll be able to see all of the modules here on the side. The modules can be purchased per module. You don't have to buy everything. If you're just interested in global management and Scope Actions, you can purchase that part just by itself. So here we're starting with a blank slate. With global management, usually it comes down in the form of a task. So it's something that you want to do, you need a report based on because you might have a project coming up, or you may need to do like some lifecycle management for your machines and so on. So with configuration management, you can put together actions that will do something for you, either report on information or execute some sort of command on your workstations. So we're going to break this up into three main parts here. The first part we're going to talk about is reporting. So we're going to do some scenarios where we're going to pull some reports from machines and show you what the reporting looks like and how you can use this information. So the first thing that's a very popular one that we usually get is an inventory report. This could be either software or hardware based. So we're going to go ahead and create a new scope action. And the scope action, in this case, we'll do a simple hardware-based inventory report. So we'll call this hardware inventory report. So we're naming our scope action, so it has some meaningful name that we know we can use for later to execute it. Since we know we're querying hardware, we're going to make sure that our scope, which is the who you want to target part of scope action, is going to be focused on computers. So we have to tell it the type of objects that we're going to be talking to. So I'm going to use my add new circle here to define the series of targets. Now the scope module it's very flexible. You can put a mix of different types of objects in here based on how your organization works. For instance, you can add an AD container. So if I wanted to add, let's say, all of the marketing workstations, I can do that here. But I also wanted to include an AD site that might be somewhere else. So I can choose an AD site, and that whole office might be part of the marketing group as well. And then there's also a local subnet range that I want to try out that's on the 10th floor of my building, let's say. Now, as far as IP ranges go, just so you know, we can also do CIDR format, as well as we support IP version 6. So we support IP version 6 ranges as well as IPv4 ranges. Oh, yeah, that's kind of big. Let's do 128. So you can really mix and match your scope module to be whatever it is you want to be as far as your targets go. You can add individual machines either by a directory search, or you can add machines by an IP scan. We have tons of options in here as far as adding machines to your scope based on your organization. So for this one here, what we're going to do is we're going to target a specific OU, one that we have set up for testing here. Okay, so this OU contains a series of machines. We're just telling Goverlan to target the OU. So whatever machines are in there at that time will be the targets of this report. So now we're going to click Next, and we're going to go ahead into creating our actual action, so the action module itself. So the action module is the what you want to do part. So we have the scope, which is the who you want to target, and the action module is what you want to do with those targets. Everything that you have to do in a scope module an action module exists in this add remove button. This add remove button will reveal a series of menus that will allow you to do whatever it is that you need to do on your machines. So for this case, we're going to do report computer property. And as you can see, this is a pretty extensive library of things that you can actually do, such as reporting user login history, network adapters, hardware devices, you name it, it's in here. Because these lists are so long, we've actually also included a search area here. So for us, we want some chassis information. So maybe we'll do computer identity information. And for us, this is going to be the model, manufacturer, serial number, and so on. So I'm going to select everything because I want everything from here. So all the machines in that OU that we've specified is going to contain all this data that we wanted in our report. So I'm now going to click OK, and then I'll click Next. And this is our finish wizard. So here we're going to decide how we want the scope action to behave from now on. Either we can select Run Now or Run Later. If I select Run Later, it hides all the options because it's just creating the scope action and putting it there. If we select Run Now, we get some options as far as repeating the scope action, such as rerunning it on a periodic basis. You want to probably use this for an inventory. That way you can have the data as often as you like. We can tell it till all nodes are processed. So maybe you have an OU that might have a series of machines, but not all of them are in at the moment. Not all of them are online. So either we'll pull the information from the Shore Data database, or we'll continue to run until everything is processed. So for this case, we're going to select Do Nothing. We're going to make it nice and easy. We just want it to run once and report the information back to us. We have a series of format reports that we can use. The table format, it's a very flexible format. It's flat. It gives you a little some search options and so on. The data sheet model is something that is probably a little more presentable for management. It has an interactive HTML sequence that you can go through to find the information that you need, as well as Excel and text format. We're going to do the data sheet for this one. So now I'm going to click Finish. Goverlan is going to go ahead and begin to run this report. So it's going to go through all of the nodes, and it's going to display the report to us. So here's a list of all the machines that the scope action queried. And with this report model, I can click any one of them and jump into the report items. So here you can see all of the information based on that machine that we wanted to. And then we can jump around and then look at the information specifically that we asked for in the report. The next thing I'm going to show you is the data sheet model for the report. So I'm going to come here and choose to select a different report format. Now, we don't have to actually rerun the scope action for this. We're just going to tell it to display the information in a different format. So here is the computer identity information again that we queried. These are all the machines that we queried and the information that we were looking for. This information is searchable. So if I wanted to only see anything that was Dell, I can type in Dell, and Goverlan will, the report will filter out any information that we didn't want. I can say any machine that is of VMware, all of our, oops, that's not spelled right. So all of our VM machines. And we'll go ahead and filter that information out as well. So this is how you can get some basic inventory reports on the machines on your network. These inventory reports can include so much more, though. As you've seen in that list, we can jump into memory, CPUs, any hardware information that we want, any software information that we want. We're actually going to jump right now into doing a software report. And I'm going to show you how you can create conditions based on your reports. So instead of telling Goverlan just to throw everything at you, we might want a specific scenario for our report. So here we're going to do, let's say we want to find out all of the Java versions. So Java version report. And this report is going to go and scan the machines and report back any Java information that we wanted, or any machine that has Java installed. So again, we're going to stay with our computers here because we're querying computers directly. And here we'll choose the same container that we had last time. Again, you can choose by IP range. You can choose through any method you like. I'm going to click Next. And here we're going to do a report based on which machines have Java installed. So in this case, we're going to use our Add Remove button, and we're still going to get the software products installed in this machine. In this case, we'll just choose name and version. But as you can see, there's a ton of other things in software products that we can query. We can also pull things like product keys from Microsoft products such as Windows and Office. We can pull it to see if this is an update to a prior product, and so on. We can pull that information all from here. You know what? We'll actually see if we can get install date too. Why not? So here are 3 distinct items that we're choosing for our report. Now we have to tell the action module to only give us machines that have Java running. So I'm going to use the Add Remove button down here. So only if the following conditions are true. So in this case, we're going to do the same thing, software products, and the product name. So I've chosen the product name, and now we'll enter our condition. So if product name, we can do something like begins with. This one is pretty easy to do for Java. The Java products are pretty standardized. So anything that begins with, we can say Java, Java 7, begins with anything, any part of that string. So I'll click OK here. So now we've created an action module that will report this data for any machine that has Java 7 installed. So we'll click OK. And now we have our action module. I can click Next. And we'll finish this one off the same as the last one. Finish. And now it's doing our Java report. So now it's running through the machines, seeing which ones have Java installed, reporting that information, and also reporting the version information. So as you can see here, this is our report. Here are all the machines. These machines have Java 7 Update 67, 51, 40. As you can see, there's a large number, a large diversity here. So in this case, we've gathered some intelligence on what Java looks like on our machines, and from here we might want to actually do something about it. And when we get into the computer, the actual configuration management part, we're going to revisit this, and I'm going to show you how to, even with a diverse environment like this, to normalize it so everybody has the same version. So this is what a software product report looks like. So the next part of reporting is not only can we report from the machines, but we can report from Active Directory. So we can create Active Directory reports based on specific criteria or based on some information that you wanted to know. For example, if you wanted to, maybe you have a home drive path update. A new file server is coming out, so you need to update everyone's home drive path. You can do that. First, you can create a report to see where everybody's pointing, and if you wanted to later on, you can create an action that will update that for everyone. Maybe you want to clean up stale computer accounts. That one's pretty popular. To do that, you need to know some information. So we'll do one of those really quick. We'll do an AD report for computer password age, right? So as most of you know, the default for your computer account's password to synchronize with AD is about 30 days. So anything longer than 30 days that hasn't been reset, you can use that as a springboard to see if that machine is actually actually exist anymore, or maybe it was decommissioned or renamed and so on, but you can actually have a report to start your investigation. So I'll click Next here. And in this case, we're still targeting computers because we want to know information about computers. I'll select Add New, and I'll use our trusty OU. I know I'll keep using the same one, but it's pretty quick. So here in the action modules, we're going to start querying Active Directory information now. So I will go ahead and do Report Computer Property, Computer Account Information, and let's do a report on, let's say, password age. So now I want to know the password age of all these machines, but in this case, I might want to set a condition. I just happen to know that the password age for all my machines, they're all live. So we're going to do something a little bit shorter than 30 days. But imagine in this case, you would do a condition where the password age is greater than a certain amount of days. Here, if I did 15 days, let's say. So now I have, actually this is the wrong condition, greater than 15 days, okay. So now Goverlan is going to go ahead, query AD, and bring back some information for me. So I'm going to do my standard selections here and click Finish. So now what Goverlan is doing is querying the Active Directory accounts. It's not querying the machines necessarily. So it's querying AD to see how old those passwords are. So here we have our report of the password age. As you can see here, none of them are older than 30. That's why I didn't choose that. But if you were looking for machines that were stale, you would put greater than 30. So once you have greater than 30 going, and you see machines in this list, they're good candidates for AD accounts to be decommissioned. So that's one of the ways you can query Active Directory based on a condition. You can query basically any Active Directory attribute you want. I'll show you actually how to access Active Directory attributes. Let's go to Properties, other than the standard ones. So here I'll go to Action Modules, and we ask for password age, which is something that we have already built into Goverlan. But what you can also do under Computer Account Information, Extended AD Properties. So here, what we can do is we can actually browse Active Directory for Active Directory attributes that are not just the standard ones that Goverlan has for you. So here I can do, I can check off any one of these and then retrieve information based on this. So I've done before some that are exchange related. So for a user account, we wanted to see what delegates that the user might have. That's actually an attribute here in Active Directory for user accounts. So here you can access the extended ones here, and then really get fancy with it if you wanted to. And this goes again for computer accounts, user accounts, and AD groups. So that's some of the Active Directory management stuff that you can do there. Let me show you how you would actually do some stuff based on users, because that's what you're going to probably do most of the time. So we'll create a new one, and we will call this, let's say we wanted to change, let's do a change profile path for AD users. So let's say they have new profiles coming up. In this case, I'm going to select users because we're managing the user accounts directly. So here I have, I'm going to choose my container. This time we're going to choose something else. Let's do New York Finance users. So all the users in here, I can tell you there's probably about 1,000 users in here, maybe less. We can tell Goverlan to change the home drive path or the logon server path, or in this case, it's the profile path, right? So now we have our scope module, and let's jump into it. So in this case, we have a profile path, and profile paths usually contain the username. So it's going to be something more than just putting in a path and telling it to run. In this case, we're going to set a user property, and user account information, we're going to change the profile path. So how exactly do we do that? So we can come in here and change the profile path to something like, I'm just going to put in a share that we have here on our lab. Now, we have to, in this case, we might have to provide a username for this. So what we can do is we can do something like %username%. So we can use the Windows variables to do this. And what Goverlan will do is it'll take, for each username that's being processed, it'll input the username there. We can also do something called dynamic value definition. So here, the dynamic value definition kind of works like variables. We can add a series of data based on the scope that's actually executing or other data that we might find in Active Directory. For instance, if I hit the insert key here, it kind of looks like our scope action screens. So in this case, I want to add, let's say, the NT account name to this, and then hit OK. Oh, actually, we got to put the whole argument in here. So let's do that. PJ Lab, SRV, / and then we can input the NT account name. Oops, that went to the wrong side. Okay, so NT account name. I'm doing the wrong one. I think the cursor's in the wrong spot. Well, at any rate, what's going to happen here is Goverlan is going to input that information based on the currently executing scope. So you can use dynamic value definition to put in things like timestamps, calculate time, calculate information based on any AD account or attribute that you might have there, and fill it in so that it can go ahead and put the information that you want. So in this case here, we can, let's just use %user%. Account information. Oops, sorry. Oops. And we're going to do profile path. There it is. Okay. So we'll go ahead and add So this will create this data in the Active Directory object for us. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to hit OK again. Next. We'll tell it to run now and finish. So while that's running, it's going to run on some of the nodes that are going on there. Let's talk about some of the other things that we can do with these user-based scope actions. So again, we can do password modification. So if you have a group of machines that you need to modify all of the passwords at one time, you can do this here. You can reset things like must change password at next logon. There's tons of things in there that you would actually be able to change. And while this is running, we can actually do the show detail screen. So this detail screen is showing us here the actual execution. So right now I have a certain amount of remaining nodes and a certain amount of nodes that are being processed. All of the processed nodes are showing up here. And the execution speed tells Goverlan how many to do at one time. So in this case, when it's all the way to the right, we're doing 64 nodes at one time. When it's all the way to the left, we're doing one node at a time. So this screen gives us some more details on the actual execution of the scope action. We have a console window here that will go ahead and display any information. If Goverlan was unable to perform a specific action, the error message would show there as well. And as you can see, it goes through objects pretty quickly, especially Active Directory, because it's fairly fast. It's just communicating with AD to make a specific change. And again, you're going to want to adjust the execution speed based on how many nodes you want to process simultaneously. And it'll process each one in a different thread and go ahead and cut through the data. And this is one of the screens that we actually have changed and updated for version 8. So it gives you a lot more information on how the scope action is running. And after this is complete, we'll go ahead and run into the computer configuration options. So we're going to talk in that sense about pushing software and making registry changes or pushing scripts if you need to. And we'll go into some of the details of the actual configuration items that you can change on your machines at any given time. Just as a reminder, this is a push-based technology. So what we're doing is we're forcing the changes to happen on the spot. We don't wait for any polling. The agent doesn't poll back or anything like that. We're doing this in real time. So if the machines are online, they take all the instructions. We have some things that you can put in place so that if the machine is offline, when it comes back on, the scope actions can run at a periodic basis to make sure that they catch everything that they need to. So here is our execution report. This showed up because we didn't add any report options to this. We just wanted it to do something. So what Goverlan is showing us here is the actual execution of how it went through. And we have no errors so far to report of. And so that's the basic execution of an Active Directory-based scope action. So the next thing we're going to jump into really quick is the computer configurations and actually changing things on the workstations themselves. And this is probably where you're going to find you do most of your work as far as scope actions are concerned. So in this scenario, we're going to talk about let's talk about some software updates and changing some software that's on a machine. So in one scenario, we might be faced with, let's say, a Java update. So we already did a report where we can see there's a few different versions of Java in our environment, and we might want to change that to make them all the same, because as we know these days, Java has a new version like every other day. So we're going to want to smooth it out so that everybody has the same installed version of Java. So let's call this a Java update action. And we're probably going to do a few things in here. So in this case, we're going to target some computers. Now, when it comes to software installations, it's important to note what we're doing is we're pushing the command down to the machine for the machine to execute something. Our installation packages that we use are just wrappers around an exe. So when the machines go to execute them, the speed at which this executes really depends on the target machine's processing power. It would take basically just as long as it would for if you were at the machine to uninstall something and install something. So that's what our execution path is going to follow here. So here I'm going to add our favorite workstation container. And then that's our target. So the next thing we're going to do is make an execution action. So here, what we want to do is we want to remove the previous version and install the latest version, or whatever version that we have available. So in this case, what we need to do is tell Goverlan to do two different things. One is an uninstallation, and one is an installation. So here, what you can do, you have a few options for this, is we can go to Software Products, and we can say uninstall software package or uninstall instance. And what this will do is it will remove the Java software for us. So if we do uninstall instance, which is the most direct way to remove something, you have to just note you have to add a condition. So uninstall instance, and we're going to tell it for any machine that has a software product that you can be very specific here if you know the exact version of Java that you want to pull out. But if you want to pull out all of them, you can say begins with, and here we can say Java 7. So in this case here, we're telling Goverlan, scan all the machines, anything that has Java 7, uninstall it. So that's how this action is set up. So we can click OK there, and now here actually let's name it so let's be a little more specific. Java uninstall actions. We can then follow that up with an installation. So I can come here and say execute computer action, software products, install software package, and then here we can select our Java package. Now, if you're not familiar with the packaging parts of Goverlan, I suggest you take a look at our YouTube channel, because yesterday we went over it as far as the administration and diagnostic section, and I have a video specific to adding and removing software. So here what we've done is we've created an installation package, and this installation package is Update 67. That just happened to be the latest one that we have. So I will select it, click OK. So now Goverlan is going to install Java on those machines. Again, we can add a condition if we feel that we need to, like only on machines that have X amount of disk space or X amount of memory, or that do not already have Java version 7. So you can add the conditions here as you see fit. In this case, we just want to install them all. So now you can see I have 2 action modules going. And these action modules can be dragged and dropped to change the order. You can use the page up, page down button, and Goverlan will execute them in the order that you see. So in this case here, we can do uninstall of Java, and then here we're going to do update to a specific version of Java. We'll click next, and we will tell it to run now. This might take a little bit of time. We can check back in a little while if we want. What we'll do is we'll also run to do some other actions. Let's see. Let's check the show details on this. All right, so we have one example of a machine that's errored out. I just happen to know that this machine is out of disk space. So that's what it looks like when Goverlan is detecting that it could not process a node. And as these go down, what's going to happen is Goverlan will display that reason down here. You can also go after the fact if you want, and you can take a look at the console and the execution log. Here we're seeing some successes, so these machines were successfully processed. So meaning that both actions were able to go through on them. So what we can do is, what we'll do, we let this run for a few more nodes, and then we'll click the abort button. And what that'll do is it'll stop the processing, and we can just go back to verify that the machines, in fact, have taken the update that we wanted. And we can do that by rerunning the report action that we had prior. So we can see what versions are actually installed on the machine. So it's also worth to note that, again, these can be very granular options. You can put as many options in there as you want. If you have, let's say, a piece of software that has some very specific requirements, like it must be another piece of software must be uninstalled, then you have to make a registry change, and you have to make a file change, and you have to install this software, and then do a reboot. Those are the kind of things that you can go ahead and put into Goverlan to get it to go and put those runbook style actions for you. So this seems to be processing fairly quickly, so let's see if we can let this go for a little bit longer, just to make sure it catches all the machines. So after this section here, what we'll do is one more example to do something like a registry change, and then we'll go into some of the finer details of a scope action, some of the extra features that are there that allow you to get these scope actions to move around a little bit, and to share with your other Goverlan users. We'll also go over some of the scheduling features. Okay, how are we doing here? Okay, you know what we'll do? We'll go through some of the questions while we're waiting for this here. Would the users be aware when you're running the queries on the PCs in the OU? So the answer to that question is no. Everything you see here happens behind the scenes. There's no pop-ups, no notifications, nothing that happens on the user machine. So that's important to note. For this to be truly a background-based system and configuration management, you probably want to have as little interaction with the users as possible, and none is preferable. So in this case here, everything that you see here is happening behind the scenes, and nothing is necessarily happening in the front. How much time does it take if you have a large OU, let's say 1,000 computers, to run a report? It depends on what you're running. Most of the things, I've seen these reports run on OUs with several thousand machines in them. As far as reports go, reports are pretty fast transfers. Pulling a piece of information from a machine is relatively quick. All of the processing power really, except in the condition what we have here, where we have an actual installation going, but all the processing power happens on your end. It happens on the Goverlan console side, because you're basically retrieving information from multiple machines at one time, and Goverlan is compiling that information. So on more than 1,000 machines, it might take you, to do a hardware inventory report, it might take you about 5 minutes. Are you able to query machines that do not have the Goverlan agent installed? Yes and no. Yes, because a lot of the queries that we do can be WMI based. So anyone familiar with WMI, we can actually jump and query the machine's WMI objects and then retrieve that information specifically. But most of the reports that you see that we're running here do require the agent. Now, as far as the agent is concerned, you have the option with Scope Actions to tell the Scope Action, install the agent, run the action, then uninstall it, if you really want to be clean about it. If you don't mind that the agent is sitting there, you can just tell the agent to remain after the fact. So that's how you can handle some of the agent stuff there. So we might have some machines out there that are holding up this process. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an abort here, and we're going to tell Goverlan just forget about the rest of the machines, and we'll jump into the report to see what's going on. So we'll close this off. Goverlan gives us some pretty interesting information as far as the actions are concerned. If I double-click here, we get a nice little chart to see what machines were processed, which ones weren't. If we come here to the run history detail, we see that 43% of the machines completed. We did abort it, so it stopped on all the rest of them. And here's the execution history. So here, this machine, I told you, didn't have enough space. I knew that was going to happen already. So this here was telling us these were all aborted, so they didn't get to process. But for the ones that did process, we can see here that they processed, and some of them probably had maybe some slowness factors. All right. Set scope as okay. So these are some of the ways that we can look at our scope action history and the actual report of the scope action and see how well it done. You can come here and click rerun on failed nodes. That'll just go back and choose the nodes that you have here to rerun the report. So let's take a look at our Java version report, and let's see if we can see any updates. So in this case, we'll hit view report because we just want to see what it looked like at that time. So here you can see these machines have version 67. This machine has version 40. This machine has this version 40, 64, and 32-bit. So let's see if we can find, rerun this report and see if we see any machines that updated. That one should complete fairly quickly. So here, let's see. We still have some that are 40. These are probably the ones that were aborted on. And the ones with 67 are here up at the top. These are the ones that were completed. So these are some of the methods that you can use to compare to see if you are now back at the status where you want it to be. If I would have let the report go, it would have just finished on the remainder machines, and these all here would have showed 67. So that's how you can use some scope actions to manage your software environment, to figure out what you have out there and actually retrieve the information and then act upon the information if you needed to. Okay, so for the interest of time, I'm just going to go on to some of the aspects of the scope actions themselves. What are some of the things that you can do with them beyond the just the standard stuff that we looked at? For instance, to be the ability to share scope modules. So down here, if you create any new scope modules down here, these scope modules will become available in other parts of the software, and you can also share it with the rest of your team. So you can make these action modules available for your other team members, or you can actually enforce it on your team, meaning that they will automatically see it no matter what. The same thing goes for the action modules. So you can come here and view objects that are available for the team, or if you had any up there, you can retrieve some as well. Right now there's none up there at the moment, but those are some of the things you can do. So if I wanted to share this one, I can drag it down here, click it, and say, make this available for my team. Make this object available to my team, and it's letting me know that it's up there. Now if I come back to and view, you can see this object is also available to download for any other members of the team. So those are two ways that you can actually share the data that you have in there with other users. And as far as scheduling goes, you can right-click any scope action and decide if you wanted to schedule it. So I can jump into the scheduler and schedule the execution of the scope action. I might want the schedule to be on a repeating basis. So I can come in here and say daily, once a month, at log on, when idle, and so on. What this will do is it will take the scope action and put it as part of your scheduled task in Windows. So Goverlan itself doesn't have to be running for these to execute. The machine just has to be on. So because you'll be supplying a user account to use it with, and then you can tell it what to do after that, such as email me the report or run a specific program and so on. So those are some of the additional features that you have with scope actions that allow you to manage anything that you have scheduled to run. If you have software updates, you know you want to make sure that this happens, or if you want to keep a recurring report system going. So these are basically the ins and outs of scope actions. As I mentioned at the beginning of this webcast, you can get really creative with this stuff. If you have some VB scripts mixed in with some actions that you need to perform through scope action, you can throw those in there and really get into some advanced runbook automation things with the scope action, and it will carry out and execute the things in the order that you list there. One thing we didn't get to hit on specifically was what the scope actions look with short data. The short end of that is if you do a report where there's a machine that's not online, Goverlan will supplement the data and just give you a little time symbol next to the report. So that little time symbol will let you know that that piece of information was pulled from the database and not live for the machines. So right now I'm just going to let everyone know if there's any questions. Go ahead and post them in the chat window, and I'll go ahead and read them off. I will redo the questions that we have here just for anybody who has joined recently. So one of the questions is, would the users be aware if you're running any of the queries on the PCs? The answer to that is no. Everything happens completely in the background. How much time does it take if you have a large OU, let's say 10,000 computers, to run the report? I've seen, or you say here 1,000, I've seen 1,000 or more run in less than 5 minutes, so you can have a compiled report ready to go. Are you available to query machines that do not have the Goverlan agent installed? You can query certain parts of WMI. I can actually show you what that looks like. Let's see. In the event that you wanted to do some WMI-based queries, which, again, gets really flexible and really complicated. So we can do, let's say, execute computer actions, WMI objects. So in here, we can take a look at all of the WMI objects that we already have built in for you, and then you can manage additional WMI objects, either with WMIX, or you can create your own list. And this list would be in the form of a WQL query. So you can come in here, write your own WQL query, tell Goverlan to execute that query on all your machines, and then return the information back to you in the report. When you're doing those things, the agent is not always required. It is recommended that you always have the agent there because it handles a lot of your authentication. Okay, so at this point, it looks like we have reached the end of our demonstration. I want to thank everybody for joining us, and this video will be posted to our YouTube channel later on. If you need any more information, please feel free to go to Goverlan.com, or you can email us at support@Goverlan.com or sales@Goverlan.com if you want any information about purchasing, or if you have any questions regarding Goverlan, and as far as any upgrades and so on, you can request that information there. You can also go to our site if you wanted to get a 30-day trial to test it out for yourself. So again, thank you everyone for showing up, and I hope you found this informative, and reach out to us if you have any questions. So again, thank you very much, and everyone have a good day.